All right, everybody, it's the NFL Exporter. We are getting ready for Championship Sunday, NFL football. In the AFC, we have the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots playing for the AFC title game. I have in with me a special guest, Kevin Bowen. He's been with us a couple times throughout the football season, and definitely happy that he could be joining me to talk about the Colts being in the championship game, something that ironically me and him talked the very first time early this year about the potential of having to face a Denver or New England on the road. As you all know, last week, Indianapolis, very impressive, was able to go out, get a road victory at Denver. Now they have to go out and play the New England Patriots. And so, Kevin, thanks for joining me. Let's go ahead and hop right in after a huge victory last week. How was the atmosphere around the Colts this week during walkthroughs and practice? And, what did the Denver win do for this team's confidence coming into this week's game against New England?
Well, yeah, I think if you look at the Colts in their last two wins, it's probably their best back-to-back effort they've had all season long, and that includes a 5-game winning streak when they played really well on the defensive side of the ball in late September and early October. But I think the Denver win was just huge for this team's confidence. A hurdle, I don't know if you can describe it as that, but just to go into Denver to beat, a quarterback like Peyton Manning. Yes, he was a little bit banged up, but this team had struggled against playoff caliber quarterbacks throughout the regular season. So to go into Denver and do what you did in terms of your defense, holding them to 13 points, really outside of that first drive, Denver never really threatened, and that first drive was kept alive by a personal foul penalty early on. So again, I think the defense played very well. Vontae Davis showed why he's a Pro Bowl corner and was probably deserving of some All-Pro consideration. 5 pass deflections, the most of any player in postseason history in 10 years. And then offensively, I thought you were able to move the football, convert in the red zone, which is an area that this team has struggled in during the regular season. So you went into an environment that no one had won in 2014. Denver was beating teams on average by about 16 points. So to go in there to get that win, to be as dominant as you were, I think now you come to New England and you have a little bit of confidence knowing that you can get it done on the road last week. And now obviously the challenge takes a step up. So I think the guys definitely were pretty loose this week, knowing that all the pressure is really on New England. The Colts are, I think they started as a 7-point underdog. I think that's grown a little bit as the week has moved along. So New England hasn't won a Super Bowl in 10 years, and I think, their fan base, and obviously with Tom Brady at the age of 37, they realize the time is ticking, and so I think the Colts are kind of playing with a little bit of house money tomorrow night.
Yep, I have to agree with everything you said, and big time credit. That's one thing I did notice about the Colts that was consistent throughout the course of the season, dating back to the first game of the season when they played at Denver. Demaryius Thomas in that game, only 4 catches for 45 yards. This past weekend, outside of the touchdown, relatively held in check. So excellent job by a Colts secondary last year, making that move to bring Vontae Davis over. Quite sure nobody expected this big of dividends to get paid so soon. So outstanding job by that secondary, who outside of Davis and possibly LaRon Landry, not too many people know about. Let me ask you this, Kevin. This time of year, teams are who they are. The obstacles from the time that me and you talked a couple games into the season all the way up till now. For the Colts, those same obstacles or challenges remain the same. They were able to overcome them last week. Running the football, not turning the football over, and getting some type of pass rush. Again, we're able to do those things when they needed to, and I think that's most important. Maybe if not as consistently, but when the Colts needed to run the football last week, they were able to get it done. They were able to overcome a couple turnovers. Certainly got a huge break there on that muffed or that kind of muff fumble situation by Josh Cribbs. But they also were able to get a turnover on Peyton Manning early in that football game to swing the momentum. And the pass rush, like I said, may have not been there all game, but certainly that was a huge play. So as far as running the football is concerned, as far as not turning the football over, as far as getting a pass rush, how confident does Indianapolis feel that they can kind of overcome pretty much, for them what have been their flaws or weaknesses throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, you mentioned that second quarter turnover, and I think that was really the play of the game. Johnson knew some of the play and how it developed looked eerily similar to the Robert Mathis sack last year against Peyton Manning. That game was at Lucas Oil Stadium. That really turned the game around in terms of giving momentum to the Colts. They scored 23 unanswered last year. sack, gave the Colts a short field. They were able to go down and score and take a lead that they would never give up. Manning was never the same. 6 straight incompletions after that. So again, I think that's going to be a key tomorrow is can you make that game-changing turnover and really rattle the Patriots. And again, Patriots were obviously very resilient last week, coming down, down 14-0, coming back down 28-14, coming back and getting that victory. So creating, I think, one turnover is going to be huge for this team. And you mentioned on the offensive side of the football, really the run game has been totally abandoned. Last week he passed the ball the first 11 plays of the game, or at least tried to pass it. I think Andrew Luck had a scramble on one of those plays. So again, I think this team has pretty much abandoned the run. Boom Herron has been a great resource out of the backfield for Andrew Luck, 18 catches and 19 targets in the postseason. I believe if he has 5 catches tomorrow, he'd break a franchise record for catches in the postseason, which is pretty impressive for a running back to do that, let alone Herron, who was probably your 4th or 5th running back when you reported to training camp back in July. So I think Andrew Luck, from an offensive standpoint and protecting the football, like you mentioned, Lance, he's doing a great job. Settling first check down, keeping drives alive. The Colts won the time of possession last week, which is something they dominated early on in the year and have struggled in lately. So again, I think it's finding Boom Herron, finding the tight end, Dwayne Allen, and Kobe Fleener is going to be key again tomorrow. Fleener had a great game against New England the first time around, 7 catches, career high 144 yards. And New England gives up the 3rd most receiving yards to tight ends during the season. So again, I think that's something that you can kind of exploit if New England takes away T.Y. Hilton, which I do expect them to try to take away Hilton as best they can, like they did back in Week 11, holding him to a season-low 24 yards. So I think those are kind of the big keys on each side of the ball in terms of keeping the same blueprint from an offensive standpoint and settling for your check downs, especially if it's going to be rainy like it looks like it's going to be in the forecast. The deep ball might not be there. And then on the defensive side, I think if you can create that one turnover to really change momentum, set up a short field, and maybe that comes on special teams. I know the Cripps play that you touched on earlier, but he has been a productive returner for this team since joining the Colts. And again, he joined the Colts the game after the Patriots regular season matchup in mid-November. So if you can set up a short field somehow, I think that would be key as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to piggyback kind of right off of what you just touched on there. That was kind of part of my next question. The Colts have played the Patriots twice over the last 2 years, got knocked out in the divisional round last year, lost to them at home earlier this season. So are there any areas, basically, even though when you play a team, win or lose, you get a chance to actually have some game footage, learn tendencies, some different characteristics, not only where areas where you can improve, but maybe you can look at some areas where you can attack them for future matchups. So again, just to kind of piggyback off some of the things you mentioned that Indianapolis needs to do in order to win this ball game, playing the Patriots playing the Patriots twice over the last 2 seasons, does Indianapolis have some things they feel confident, not only maybe assuring up themselves in some areas where they were beaten pretty bad. I know that running the football is something that New England did against them very effectively, so I know that's going to be a top priority, but I'm quite sure they don't want to feed too much into it to where they're getting beat really bad in play action or missing some lapses in the secondary, but also offensively. Are there some things, basically experience that they've been able to gain and they think they can use to their advantage playing New England Sunday?
Yeah, both those losses, the 2 in the divisional round last year in the playoffs and the one back in Week 11, they ended up being 3-score games at the end, but they were one-possession games in the 4th quarter, and the Colts just couldn't get that one stop that they needed to turn the ball back over to the offense. And again, you touched on the run game, 480 rushing yards for the Patriots in the last 2 meetings, an area to watch though on Sunday. Again, the Patriots only rushed it 13 times for 14 yards last week against the Ravens, the fewest ever for a team to win in the playoffs in NFL history. Jonas Gray had 201 yards back in the first meeting. He hasn't even really played a ton since then. So I expect some combination of LeGarrette Blount and Shane Vereen against the Colts tomorrow. Patriots used jumbo packages on 38 of their 77 offensive snaps back in Week 11 as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, considering they're going to be without their rookie center, Brian Stork. He suffered a knee injury against the Ravens, and he's not going to play on Sunday. So does that kind of hinder them in terms of how many jumbo packages can they use? And now the Colts have Arthur Jones back in the lineup. He's a key guy to get in the free agency period for this team. The Colts have revamped their defense So again, a new center in there. That's where Jones and Josh Chapman, the nose tackle, come into play on Sunday. So I think from a defensive standpoint, you got to come out and stop the run, try to force the Patriots' hand and make them one-dimensional. But again, last week they obviously passed the ball very well with Brady, over 360 yards. But yeah, I mean, I do agree that I think the Colts have learned a lot and won't be too, awestruck isn't the right term, but just there's a mystique about playing the Patriots, and obviously past Colts teams have struggled against them and have struggled out here in Foxborough, but that's pretty much every AFC team over the past decade and a half. But I think that's where it goes back to that Denver win last week and how much confidence that win gave this team going forward. And I don't expect them to be caught up in the moment, if you will, about playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Sounds great. And then last but not least, before we get you out of here, Kevin, and again, thanks so much, Spur the Moment, for joining us. I'm quite sure that everybody out there will appreciate the inside scoop here. Chuck Pagano, a guy that has certainly done an excellent job with this Colts franchise. If you look, we obviously know he was the first year was there, had some physical and health ailments he had to get through, so Bruce Arians helped. But what a job Chuck Pagano has done, kind of flying under the radar, 3 straight division titles out for Indianapolis. So certainly wanted to make sure him and his staff get a lot of credit. But my question to you here, Kevin, is how has Chuck Pagano and his staff, how do you re-up again? Going out last week, you could see the joy on the team's face, Pagano, and particularly after the final whistle went down. A lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of dedication goes into a win. So, what has and what can Chuck Pagano and the staff do to not have Indianapolis settle? A lot of teams, I would kind of say maybe an unexpected from the standpoint of probably not too many people outside of the Colts and Colts fans thought that they had a chance to win that game. So, how do you re-up again? How do you go back, gird up again, not just be happy to be in the AFC title game maybe a year or two early, not just settle for making it this far? How do you reinstill that hunger, that motivation to really go out and not only, settle again for making it here, but actually going out and trying to win this ball game and make it to the Super Bowl?
I think that's where your veteran leadership has to come into play. It's guys like Reggie Wayne and Corey Redding, 2 guys that will definitely entertain the thought of retiring coming up here in the offseason, and knowing that there are guys inside the locker room that this could be it for them. And I think that's what really drives this team. They have a great balance of that young 2012 rookie class that are now in their 3rd year, guys like Dwayne Allen, Colby Fleener, Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, that they realize that they are veterans in that locker room, that this could be it. And so I think that's where you have to take full advantage of this opportunity. There's only 4 teams right now that are going to be suiting up tomorrow, and there's 28 that have already cleaned up their lockers and have already started their vacations. I think the Colts do, realize and relish this opportunity. You mentioned Chuck Pagano earlier. When Ryan Grigson hired him back in 2012, he was looking. The phrase that he used was a leader of men, and I think Chuck really embodies that. He's truly a player's coach. You listen to a guy like Ray Lewis, who played under Chuck when he was defensive coordinator out of Baltimore. I mean, he speaks glowingly of the type of man that Chuck Pagano is. And again, his fight, battling leukemia and making it back, and he always talks about a vision, and that vision is hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. He doesn't shy away from that end goal. So I think the Colts, again, they definitely realize how fortunate they are to be in this position, and I think they're going to play very well. I mean, it's kind of an eerie story, if you will. Back in that 2012 AFC title game between the Ravens and the Patriots, Pagano was the defensive coordinator out here in Foxborough, and Billy Cundiff missed that late field goal. Lee Evans had that pass, broken up in the end zone late in that game, and the Ravens, squandered a chance to go to the Super Bowl. If the Ravens win that game, Pagano probably does an interview for the Colts job in the coming days, and who knows what would have happened in terms of who the Colts would have hired. So it's kind of funny how everything works out, and now here he is back in Foxborough 3 years later, leading the Colts to the AFC Championship game, and Corey Redding was on that team with him back then. Arthur Jones was on that Ravens team as well, and now those 2 guys are going to be key guys to watch as the Colts try to stop the Patriots run game tomorrow night.
All right, great stuff, Kevin. Well, again, thank you for taking out time, spurred a moment to join me, get this exclusive interview in. I certainly wish the Colts the best of luck. I certainly am looking forward to a very good and competitive game, and I certainly hope this is not the last time for us this season. I certainly hope in a couple weeks I can be talking to you out in Arizona if the Colts can overcome a big hurdle and make it to the Super Bowl. So thanks again for joining the show.
Definitely. Thank you, Lance. Always a pleasure.
All right, thanks.